welcome back to my channel. It is Christian here, and you're tuned in for more of my 2 cents. Now, this is going to be a great video, okay? Because I am going to touch on a topic that is probably so delicate, all right? It might get me in trouble, but who cares, all right? Let's do this. I am so excited to have you guys back. If this is your first time here, then welcome to the channel. Thank you so much for joining. Hopefully something here inspires you, dialogue, conversation, or it's, thought-provoking at the very least. And for those who are returning to centers, what up, what up, what up? Your girl is excited to have you back, all right? So go ahead, like the video, subscribe to the channel. We would love to add you to our 2 cents crew because you know how we like to do bars. Okay, now, 3 points that matter most before we get into the topic. I'm so excited to start talking, okay? Number 1, you are not crazy. Well, no. Number 1, you're not alone. Number 2, you're not crazy. Number 3, God, your creator, still loves you. All right. So, this is so good. This is going to be so good, y'all. And I'm going to try to keep the video under 15 minutes. I promise you. But I have so much experience in this arena with this topic that I just think that this is everything. I've never had this discussion with people outside of my immediate family. So I'm excited to bring this to the YouTube streets by way of my 2 cents. We're going to be talking about prophets versus psychics. Woo! That alone right there is enough to make you want to get the popcorn, hit pause, and bring some of your friends into the room. Bring your friends to the table for this conversation. I am going to be talking about prophets versus psychics today. And it is such a very touchy, gray area for me because I have a lot of questions. I have a lot of questions that need answers, and I refuse to have this conversation with super deep Christians because, of course, they're just going to really have scripture that's going to throw out psychic ability and make it seem like it's all Satan, all the devil, negative. You don't mess with that. Don't touch that. It's not of God, whatever. It's on the dark side. It's demonic. It's witchcraft. We hear all of these titles thrown out there when it comes to psychics. But then prophecy is glorified and it is highly sought after. And people really want that title. And I have a video about prophets, the school of prophets, right? Being taught to be a prophet. People getting training to be a prophet. All of that is normal. How about that? Now, let me give full disclaimer here. My mother is an evangelist, and she also flows in prophecy. And I will talk about that and give some different accounts. This is going to be such a juicy video, and I cannot guarantee that it's going to be under 15 minutes because I have so much to share on this topic because I have real life experience and connections with a prophet and someone who walks in their calling very heavy, as well as people who I have talked to who are on the opposite side of the spectrum. I have not ever gone to a psychic, but I have talked to a, I don't know what you would call her. She is definitely like a spiritual, I don't know, because she's not clairvoyant, but I'll tell about that experience too. And we can, hash it out and talk about what she could have been. So first, I like to give definitions because by right, I want to say that when I'm discussing this today, I'm going to be like addressing between the prophets, psychics, tarot card readers, palm readers. It's just so much in this space that is kind of like a small world, but so much of it is looked at as a dark side, and prophecy is glamorized because it's affiliated with church and the angels and God for his glory. Versus this is all Satan-based. And for full disclaimer, I believe they're all in the same boat. But we will get there. All right? We're going to get there when we get there. So, the definition of a prophet. A prophet teaches truth and interprets the word of God. I'm reading from my notes. He calls the unrighteous to repentance. He receives revelations and directions from the Lord for our humans here on earth benefit. He may see into the future and foretell coming events so that the world may be warned. All right. A psychic. Relating to or denoting faculties or phenomena that are apparently inexplicable, cannot be explained, by natural laws, especially involving telepathy, 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 is it telepathy or telepathy? Or clairvoyance. Now, I'm going to go to the Wikipedia definition of psychic. A person who possesses or appears to possess extrasensory abilities such as precognition, clairvoyance, and telepathy, or who appears to be susceptible to paranormal or supernatural influence. Now, a prophet, according to Wikipedia, someone who speaks by divine inspiration, someone who predicts the future, a soothsayer. Do y'all see what has happened here? I'm doing a sister girl neck roll. Okay, let's get into it. Now, as you all know, I am no stranger to challenging what's been taught, because I think that that's what we all should be doing at this state in the game. None of us should be taking anything for face value. None of us should just be allowing what we were told or shown by anyone to be our truth. We should find out for ourselves and question everything and everyone. Even if they may have had the best intentions of sharing and enlightening us, we still need to question it, and we need to find out for ourselves to get an understanding. The end. And I mean multiple sources. You are not wrong by wanting to know more. You are not wrong for wanting a deeper understanding of what you've been shown or told. You're doing the right thing by not just following or going along to get along and not having a mindset of group think. That is dangerous, and that's how a lot of people get in trouble, and that's how people are overrun and overtaken and controlled, because no one ever asks why, what, when, where, and most importantly, who. All right, so a prophet in the church is highly respected because they are seen as a vocal individual who gives and who receives and gives information directly from God, right? And that's across all religions, really. A prophet is like the person that you trust and that gives the word that is inspired by God, who gives the revelation that tells people to turn from their wicked ways, you know, do this, don't do that, don't be here, don't go there, you know, don't think like that. All of those things are trusted, and when the word goes forth from a prophet, it is highly revered and respected, and that is what is expected. Prophets set the expectation of what is to come based off of what is or isn't done. So think about it in that regard. The position of a prophet in ministry is highly respected and really highly sought after. I get why people would want to get trained to be a prophet, because a lot comes with that if people trust your word and what you say you've been shown. Psychics, on the other hand, have a negative connotation because of the element of darkness. And, you know, you see the crystal ball and them looking into a lot of these instruments and a lot of, you know, outside propaganda that just isn't the Bible. So while you don't have a prophet who has a crystal ball, has crystals, sage, or anything, any incense, or talk about quantum leaping or connection with your energy and spirit and all of that, that side relies heavily on extra practices, right? Alignment and energy from the atmosphere and environment and other sources. While prophets get to say from God, like from God. I was seeking God. God showed me. He said, he spoke to me. But what I need y'all to get that I don't get, right? While we may have a problem, church people, and even people in the world who don't like to dibble and dabble in darkness and mess with the devil, right? There's a problem with psychics because of who we've been told the source is for psychics to get their information. We don't know where people who are allegedly called or who are prophets, we don't know where they get their insight and information from. They may not be saying it's a crystal ball or it's cards or it's energy or it's an extra spirit realm. They just get to say God, and we just accept that as the truth. We just automatically believe what it is that they say they've been shown, because they're not doing any private sessions that we know of. But I'll talk about that, because there are people who actually sell and take donations for prophecies. And I'm going to say this because I know this to be true. And Larry Reed actually has a a prophet hotline or something like that. Like if you give to his ministry or to his nonprofit or something like that, he literally has said it on his lives before. You make a donation, whatever, you'll be getting a call within 24 hours from one of our prophets, like one of our team or staff prophets, to give you a prophecy. And I just be looking like, what? How does this work? How is this not aligned with being psychic-ish? If we were making fun of Miss Cleo, which we now know was a scam, right? If we laugh and talk about those people who also claim to be able to see the future and give information about people's lives and decisions and all of that is to come, how is that not the same thing when you're telling people to give a donation and you'll give them a phone call with the prophecy included? What are you talking about? How is that not the same thing? How is that not the same thing, y'all? Same thing goes in church when there's a pastor or a prophet that comes and people run to the church house because they're hoping to get picked or called, and then this person seeing who they are talking about. I've seen that too. I've actually done that before, where I heard a prophet was coming and I wanted to go to the church, like hoping that he would pick me up because I needed a word. Y'all don't want to be honest and real out here, but if you want to be honest, save your time and call a psychic hotline, because some of these prophets don't know nothing either. They don't know nothing, or what they do know, it's not really clear on what their source was to get that information, but they can just say it was from God and it's all good. I feel like there are people who genuinely do have the ability to see, and I mean see. And not copy me on the email. See, I mean like third eye. I can see what you got going on in your life. I can see where some unhealed trauma and issues and damage is coming from. And I can also see some things that are to come in the future. I believe that those people literally exist. I know they exist. I lived with that kind of person. So I know it from either a spiritual aspect as well as a psychic aspect. Psychics just aren't in church. They're just not Christians. They may not be Muslims. They may not be a part of, they may not be Jehovah's Witnesses, but these are still giftings and callings that people use in whatever way they choose. No, my mother is not a woman of darkness and into divination, but let's be very clear here. The lines blur, because she could just as equally have that same gifting if she wasn't a Christian. And she can use it to her advantage in any way she wants. She can call herself a psychic or not. That could still be a gift and a skill that she has to see and to speak. And it still be respected because it comes to pass. There have been people that my mother has prophesied their pregnancies before they were pregnant. She has seen the baby. She has done it to me before. Okay? Very clear here. Let's be very clear. I'm not afraid of these things, and I don't question if they exist. I question why we separate the two, trust one, but then condemn the other. Why is one devilish and the other one is glorified and is straight from God? Can it not just be that there are people who have this gifting, skill, and ability, and they use it in whichever way they choose? The church uses it to make money. Like I said, prophets come and people are excited and they rush to church to see if that person is going to pick them out. Be standing up there with a microphone and say, I see someone with the name that starts with a V. And I'm seeing a lot of da-da-da, and I'm seeing a lot of this, and I'm seeing you doing this. And then that person stand up crying. That is just not in a crystal ball format, a dark room with purple lights and shedding smoke. Y'all think that that's what that has to look like in order for that to be what it is. It is not that, but it's at church and it's okay. Because God is moving, right? God is showing this person this. But the same thing is happening. But it's a perversion over here, right? It's a perversion. It's a perverse act for the devil's glory over here. But then over here, this is God ordained and they were sent to say this to you. But I need you to understand that there are people chasing a word and have expectancy, period. People want someone to speak into their lives. And you have to understand that the thin line that there is still the same thin line that exists when you choose outside of church sources. And those people have clear energy and the ability to connect as well. Now we think about and we talk about, what are they called? Mediums who can connect with the afterworld, the afterlife. And they, talk to people who are deceased and that are no longer here. The same thing happens in church. I have heard prophets and people tell them that your mama, is saying, I hear her saying such and such. I'm still with you. I see you. Whatever. I'm sorry for what happened when you were 6. I've seen that. And the person starts crying because they know what happened when they were that age. They remember and they know what their parent is apologizing for. But see how I'm saying it's a thin line. It's a thin line. It's giving, and it is love and hate, because it's a calling that has pretty much been accepted on one side of the spectrum, but then not on the other side. And there was a pastor a couple of months ago on social media who actually said that he had gone to a psychic and he was still going to be at church praising him tomorrow, and that the psychic had told him some stuff that was true, some things that he knew nobody else knew about. And he didn't care who knew he had gone to one. And people were upset about that. And some people was like, I'm glad that happened for you. He said he had gotten deliverance and he had gotten answers and help on some things that he had been struggling with for years. And this psychic was able to help him. And he wanted to share that testimony. Now, child, for what reason? That's his business. I'm not going to say he should have kept it to himself. What I'm going to say to you is that there are people that are psychics or that are clairvoyant who may be able to read cards, read palms, look in balls, whatever. They may use those extra things. Some of them may not even need those things. They can just simply tap into it the same way your prophets do. They can. They're human. It's off and on. Everybody's not out here summons and stuff and having you hold hands and close your eyes and chant. Some people don't. That stuff don't have to be done. My mother, literally, when she would preach and be going forward or whatever, my mother preaches with her eyes closed. And, that's her thing. She said that's how the Spirit deals with her. I'm not here to knock that. When she prays for people, her eyes be closed. She don't even be knowing who's in front of her, right? If you see my mother, mama, you know this to be true. So we're talking about years and years and years of this happening. There's been so many occurrences and accounts of people coming back and saying, evangelist, prophetess, Stamps, whatever. That's her name, Stamps. You told me that such and such was going to happen, and it did, right? And there'd be over time. It's not always instant, immediate. It'd be some years, months, or whatever later. But those people would come back and tell her that, like, if they would see her again at the store or at another service or at school or whatever, and she wouldn't even know who they were. Like, she would be shocked. Like, oh, okay, what service was that? Because she wasn't actually looking at people. So she wasn't actually seeing people come up to her. She would just be standing there in the front of the church while the prayer line was being assembled and people were coming, but her eyes would be closed. So she would pray for people, but not really knowing who they were or what their situation was. And my point with that is, she didn't have no crystal ball or any of that stuff. Nobody was giving her their palms to read. So she was getting that from a source that was being downloaded into her concerning who was standing in front of her. And based off of who was in front of her, either there was a word for them or there wasn't. There were some people she would pray for and she would just send them on the way. Everybody didn't have a word to be given. There wasn't something that she could see concerning everybody. And people want that. People thirst for that. And when they can't get that in the church world, right? If there's not something coming through for them, they do seek outside sources. This pastor that I just shared and spoke to you all about, clearly that was his case. He's a pastor. He's around other ministers. Clearly nobody else has been able to speak to him and see that he was hurting or had gone through something and needed deliverance or healing or closure. But he sought another source who also had that same ability and skill. They walk in it regularly, not just when the lights are off or down and the church music is going up in a high way, which that's another video I'm going to do about church music and how it actually plays on your emotions to make you feel like you're having a spiritual encounter. Come on, somebody, because all of this is in this for a reason. Y'all don't want to have these conversations But y'all are out here playing games like the church is the only one, like the church people or Christians or whatever are the only ones who have spiritual connections and ability to share deep spiritual information and insight. That's not true. And everybody ain't tapping into Satan, into the devil. They're just not. Because quiet as it's kept, I don't believe in Satan. So if I'm giving you that information, I can tell you that I'm sure there is a dark side that does exist, and you can summons whatever you desire to summons. If you believe that that is reality and real for you, you can tap into it. Just like if it's God and goodness and grace and favor and faith and mercy and all of that and peace, people don't have a problem with tapping into all of these things and then believing that this is out here to counteract it. But then when it comes to church and it comes to you wanting to know things and be exposed to things, you have a closed mind to how other people are tapping into those same sources. And there are prophets who live trashy lives and do whatever they want to do, but then you still let them put their hands on you and speak over you. But then you will condemn and then have a problem with a psychic who does it for a living. What's the difference when you're getting pimped out of your paycheck anyway over here for a prophecy? When people are telling you to get in the $50 line and the $100 line and the $150 people, they get prophecies. But let you just have a $25 or $5 offering. The Lord ain't got no word for you. So that's not. Oh, okay. But we don't want to talk about that though. We don't want to talk about that. Dang it. I didn't even get to my points. Let me go through them real quick. The difference between a prophet and a psychic, you let me know if you see a difference here. Sees the future, warns of destruction, wills their power, and they call it of God. That's the prophecy side. When they're prophetic, right? They can see the future. They can warn of destruction. They wield their power, right? Prophet such and such said this. Prophet such and such said that. They saw this. You better watch that. You've been around such and such and such. Wielding of power. Playing into that. And then it gets to be called of God. Put God's name on it and it's good to go. It's got the stamp of approval all over it. There's no problem with it because it came from a prophet. But then you find out that people are out here paying to be a prophet and get trained to be a prophet. You can just be out here saying whatever you want to say to people, being reckless. There are people who have spoken prophecies that they have not come to pass. Brian Carn. There are videos of other pastors saying stuff to people over the pulpit and the person saying, nah, that ain't right. That ain't true. You don't know what you're talking about. How many of us probably have encountered that where someone has spoken something over us and we knew it wasn't right? It didn't align with anything in our lives. They missed it. But you don't say nothing because wielding of power, you're not going to go against the prophet. You're not going to shut them down and embarrass them. But that's better than accepting something being spoken over you that's not true. That you know you don't set yourself in agreement with and that actually does not align with what you have going on at all. How many times have there been things that have just fallen to the ground, words that were not even accurate or on point or had no way of coming to pass and didn't? Be careful. Understand and know that the things that usually the church world wants to make bad and a problem for you, they operate in it too. Because let's just be honest here. If it's okay for you to speak in tongues and to run around the church and do all of these things that look crazy to people on the outside, but you call it a move of the spirit, but then you come over here and you have some chants and people are saying other things, lifting their hands up with their eyes closed and their head raised, that's demonic. You make it make sense to me. If I'm a person from the outside looking in, both of y'all look crazy, no? Or are both of you summoning a source? Don't play with me. Do not play with me. That's another video about speaking in tongues. Y'all out here doing and saying the same thing repeatedly. It's people that have the same tongues. It don't never sound different. Never. They have their own tongues that sounds the same and they can break out into it whenever they want to in mid-sentence. Get out of my face. Because to me, if it's really spirit flowing and spirit filled, it would sound different every time, baby. Because you should be saying something different. None of my words sound the same. Because I'm saying something different every time I open my mouth. Right? But y'all ain't ready for that though. But this was a great topic. Hopefully you'll do some more research and you can go and talk to your people about it. Talk to your pastor, have him explain the difference between prophets and psychics. And I bet it's going to be a lot of ring around the rosy and scriptures used to make sure that it's just safe and sound and you can rest your little mind. Don't worry about what's happening with that. Yeah, I don't like it. I don't like the confusion. I don't like the lack of clarity and how you guys really don't have anything to back this stuff up. But you know that if given the opportunity, you would go to somebody too who can see the future for you. And when you go to church, you're paying for psychic ability and prophecy as well. And you always running up on somebody wanting to be touched and agreed with. You need to watch who touching you and who you agreeing with. But okay. Hopefully you've enjoyed this video. Drop down in the comments below and let me know. If you're new here, please consider liking the video and subscribing to the channel. We would love to add you to our 2 Cents crew. Until next time, see you guys later. Bye.